can take over and can start your lecture. Will that be fine, sir?
All right.
Sure, sir. Shall we start, sir?
Yes.
Sir, shall we start?
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Sure. So, welcome back, dear participants. It's a privilege, a pleasure, and absolute honor to welcome Dr. Shekhar Kumar Neeraj Sahab. He is an authority on the wildlife illegal trade in India as well as globally. I will formally introduce him, but let me brief him about the overall course which we are doing here right now. Sir, this is a 21 days training program, as I've already briefed you informally over WhatsApp. We have, sir, around 34 participants across the country. They are at a baseline, they are all from the forestry background, and they are currently working at the assistant professor, scientist level or equivalent level across different universities, primarily in the agricultural universities as well as in general universities, and some of them are also belonging to the non-governmental organizations, which are basically, one is also from the industry, for example, from Dabur. So with this brief background, dear participants, Dr. Shekhar Kumar Neeraj Sahab, we, at the outset, appreciate his determination because he was not, doing well. He is suffering from a bad and sore throat, but he was committed to deliver his lecture, and there, we have him. So thank you so much, sir. And please bear with us, as Dr. Shekhar Sahab has might be a bit slow in speaking and, while running through his slides. So for a brief introduction, he's a senior IFS officer with over 3 decades of service. He has held various assignments of forest management, wildlife management, and policy development as well. His specialization is in investigations of wildlife crime and wildlife trade, also in the wildlife management and international policy development. He has been the lead in India in processes of establishment of development of South Asian Wildlife Information Network, which is popularly called as SAVAN, and 8 South Asian countries intergovernmental wildlife enforcement body. I've been fortunate to work with him for a duration of around more than a year. He is a recipient of various prestigious awards such as Royal Bank of Scotland Foundation Earth Hero Awards in 2017, IUCN's listing of Asia's leading figure in wildlife conservation, Graduate Research Association at the School of Natural Resources, University of Arizona, USA, from where he also earned his PhD as well. And there are many more awards to his credit. He has over 30 research publications in the national and international high impact factor journals. He has also been recognized with various international and national consortium as member, chair, and co-chair. He is currently at the Principal Chief Conservator of Forest and State Chief Wildlife Warden, Government of Tamil Nadu, Environment and Forest Department. Before this position, he was the first director and he was instrumental in establishing the Advanced Institute for Wildlife Conservation, Vandalur, from 2018 to 2020. And the former country head for the traffic, some of you may be aware of how the non-governmental organization traffic, the Global Wildlife Trade Monitoring Network of the IUCN and WWF India in New Delhi from 2013 to 2017. So with this brief introduction, I would now once again warmly welcome Dr. Shekhar Kumar Neeraj Sahab to please deliver his lecture on the overview of illegal wildlife trade. Sir, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Aishwarya. It was a very honorable introduction from you. Many thanks to you. I don't know whether I mean that sometimes reminds me of a lot of things which remain in the past and gives me very good memories. And that one of the finest memories definitely was association with you and all that we did together. And then all that surveys, research, trade research, all that we did. Thanks very much also for inviting me to this program, which I really value a lot. I'm sorry that I really have to control my voice to become audible. I hope that the participants would be probably able to understand that what I shall be trying to speak. So
Sure.
Thank you very much. Let me go. We shared the presentation, so I'll just go back to that. And oh, that is appearing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let me go ahead with that straight away. I thought since you are all students, professors and faculty and scientists from colleges, universities, as Aishwarya told me, so I thought that apart from wildlife trade, I'll also probably talk a little bit in my presentation itself about about the approaches, scientific approaches, which we employ nowadays. Should be doing more about it. The tools and technologies in wildlife crime investigations, and that would make a little bit sense because of your direct relevance, and also because of that is what we should be actually talking about a lot in time to come. Let me tell you briefly about a crime scene. So this is a typical crime scene which happens very frequently. Even after, some of you might have heard about weapons, this large number killing of elephants, tusk and ivory trade internationally, nationally, and how brutally it is to kill. And then we thought that after the elimination of the weapon, elephant poaching has been actually stopped, while crime related to elephant tusk, at least from Tamil Nadu and southern India. But then of late, in 1 year itself, we had about more than 20 seizures of elephant tusks. Because the demand, tusk really commands huge price in the international market. Elephant ivory might be, and since it's a black market, therefore we don't even know about the kind of prices and the prices vary because of there's no limit and there's no restriction on it. So it can be ₹1 lakh per kilogram, it can be 5 lakhs rupees per kilogram, and that's the driver. That's what drives the trade. And elephant tusk trade is one particular kind of wildlife crime which probably involves the largest number of countries in the world today. More than 95 countries, some of the origin of the product, some of the transit, some also of the destination market. So almost 90 to 100 countries actually remain involved in trade in one form or the other. So this typical crime scene which I was trying to describe, you can see how much it is compromised, because that reflects that how poorly investigation is done of a crime scene in a wildlife crime, and this is a region that probably the prosecutors and the enforcement officials not able to get really good evidence from the crime scene that could strengthen their case in the court. Prosecution could be stronger, and then probably conviction could have been better. So conviction is actually less than 2.5 to 3%. Maybe one of these reasons is poor collection of evidence and compromising crime scenes like this, and maybe also lack of understanding about that. So tusks in all forms are traded, the elephant tusks. And as I was saying that in last year alone, we would have probably arrested more than 30 people in different crimes, in almost 20 crimes. And then majority of them are still not completely brought to the legal justice, because we have still to connect linkages. And as I said that in the beginning, that since it's very internationally commanded, so even if we have caught, would have caught 1 or 2 persons who might be just a career or local poacher, but then the link to him, to the middleman, to further middleman, borderman, and also the market people remains still to be explored and investigated. And unless you do that, unless the entire chain is broken, it is usually very difficult to really arrest the crime. So price and then low prosecution, low conviction, and these deficiencies in both enforcement and prosecution investigation remain probably the factors why crime still thrives year after year, decades after decades, and talks after talks. The bottom middle slide, have showing you a lot of evidences in it. There look to be diary, there look to be also some bullets there, and different parts, then probably also flask. All that actually help in getting the evidences or general Indian evidence that required for solving a crime and establishing it under the law. And the result is also very, quite evident that when we were thinking of that elephant after weapons and many gangs and many seizures, in fact, the crime has been controlled because a lot of accused have been arrested. But when we do analysis, and it's so important for understanding of anything, any issue, empirical analysis. So when I was looking at the data from the year 2000 onward until the last census, 2018, close to 18, I found that surprisingly there was quite a sharp decline. If you look at the 2012 figure and then 2018, 2017 actually the last census. So 2017 synchronized census. So if you look at, then you can see the sharp decline, very, very sharp decline, negative slope. And that itself shows that we have lost huge population. And poaching is especially things a matter of a great concern because usually in poaching, especially say with respect to elephant, Indian elephant only the male has got tusks, and male to female ratio itself remains quite skewed in most of the areas. Let's say 1:5 to 6 is still a healthy ratio, but sometimes 1:10, 1:15. In early 90s, I remember in Periyar Tiger Reserve, which was largely affected by poaching, had brought this female to male ratio almost to 125 to 1. So one male elephant to 125 female. So you can imagine that will depress the population very soon, and sooner or later that can potentially even wipe out the population. Why it is happening? Because since you want tusk, and Asian elephant only has the male only has the tusk. So obviously you are then targeting the male elephants. So if you eliminate the male elephants like this and still the ratio, then very obvious that population growth rate will be substantially affected. So therefore, poaching in that way also is extremely dangerous because it's targeted. In case of even tiger, you always look for the biggest animal to optimize your effort and maximize the profit. And that means that male elephant, which has got bigger body size, bigger body parts, and therefore you have more profit. So poaching in that respect also is extremely serious and matter of serious concern for most of the species. Now, in ivory product, and ivory products are quite much in market. In anywhere you go, whether the elephants are found there or not.
Sir, for disturbance. Hello.
Yeah, please.
Hello.
Yeah.
सर स्लाइड थोड़ा मूवमेंट हो सकती है थोड़ा तो इमेज क्लियर हो जाए सर मतलब क्लियर समझ में आ जाएगा सर
Listen the nature slide movement.
So I think he's talking about the slides. No, sir, slides move nahi ho rahi, sir. They are not getting changed.
Oh, is it?
Yes, sir.
Oh, so you are still in the first slide?
Yes, sir, we are still in the first slide, sir.
Oh my God. Check that. Why should it happen? Conditions. Just check now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now it is getting changed.
Sir, yes.
Yes, sir.
Sorry about that. I'll quickly show the slide I was talking this. I was talking about crime scene. This was the crime scene, compromising. Then elephant tusk accused. Different products, evidences. I talked about that in this slide. Then I talked about the analysis, data analysis, and that showed the sharp decline of population between 2012 to 2017, 18, when was the last inquiry census, and that showed itself that how much population has been impacted because of removal of male elephants, as well as also female elephants, death of female elephants. And I must say that only reason of this decline is only the poaching. I'm not saying that, but then quite much it contributes to population decline, and the reasons are obvious, which I discussed. And I was on this slide. Is this slide visible where I'm showing the Shagger's lines, Shagger angles?
Yes, sir. It's visible, sir.
So here, what I wanted to speak about is that since ivory products are available everywhere in the market, whether you nationally you go to any city or smaller towns also could be possible. You go to big cities like Bombay, Delhi, etc., Kolkata, we can print it and can be still be available now through mostly hidden channels. They are sold. Sometimes even it's open also in markets if someone conducts a survey and conducts some intel-based operations. Now, finding whether it's an ivory, because ivory is also produced by many other species, as some of you may be knowing, or most of you may be knowing. Even blue sperm whale also gives ivory. This walrus also gives ivory. So even fishes and ivory are given by even wild pigs as well. So it's very important to also identify the species, especially in wildlife crime angle, crime protection, crime investigation, because all species focused, investigation. The entire act is species focused. So identifying is very important because to prove in the court of law that this species which is protected, and with respect to that protected species, these are the penalties, and this is the prosecutional procedure. So therefore, since I say one of the most common item of the wildlife crime is ivory, so identification is, I don't know how clear the slide is, but if you take a magnifier, take a cross section of any ivory piece, and that can be a idol, can be a raw tusk, or it can be a highly processed tusk. Then you find cross sections of lines, intersections of lines, which is called Schlegel lines, and then usually they make between two lines, they make an angle of 135 degree usually, and that's that if the lines are present on that product, then it's 100% ivory. If it's not, then definitely there can be something else. A lot of fake things also are shown in the market or produced in the market to bluff and still sell off in name of ivory. So, and for this, it's a very simple forensic operation. You have a magnifier, you have some practice, and then you look at the magnifier and then identify the lines, Schlegel lines, and just look at this pattern. This pattern, if you look at closely, then you can still probably can have this pattern visible to you, and then so that is the way to identify, and then you proceed. Then you decide whether to proceed with the prosecution or not. Or if you are a semi-common citizen, then probably it's for you to inform the prosecutioner or the enforcement agency enforcer. So we come to pangolin. This is also data is of the last 10 years. In these 10 years, more than 10 years actually, 1999 to 2006, almost 20 years. So if you see that pangolin is one species which, the slide clear to you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's clear.
If you look at how pangolin trade, really increased, and then that's showing in the time which is close to the COVID period, closer to that. During that period, suddenly the price really catapulted to a very great height all over the world. And around that time, when the world got very conscious about loss of populations of 80 species of pangolin, four found in Africa, four in Asia, India has got two species, Indian pangolin, Chinese pangolin. That moment, CITES brought it under Index 1 of the CITES, so that internationally it can be regulated, it can be completely, the crime can be addressed and can be stopped. India had already Schedule 1 this species, brought to Schedule 1, but despite all that, during the COVID period itself, when we were making some operations and data, and a lot of intel was passing from here to here, there, in Madhya Pradesh, in Andhra Pradesh, in Tamil Nadu, we found that huge amount of pangolin was poached. Huge amount during the COVID period when the people were not well on scene on the roads. Most of the trade was through cyberspace, through internet, and seizures were also done. But the graph also kept going across the world, in upward direction. That showed that if some species in demand, it's really difficult to control the trade unless you have very targeted and good approach. In fact, pangolin is, as you know, that's one only scaly mammal in the world found, and India has got some other regions like in central India, in Vidarbha region, in Uttarakhand and near Rishikesh and Dehradun, foothills of Himalayas, and then Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh interface, and then I've got linkage to northeast, Manipur, Tripura, Assam, and Bengal, and then from there it gets into China or Southeast Asia, where the Chinese expect its leap and where the demands are huge, price is also really big. A lot of wildlife crime also happens because of the myths and the black magic and the stories and mythological stories which are attached with that. If you look at this slide in which a person is wearing a ring which is made of pangolin scale, then the person has been advised by a tantric that if you wear this ring, then your piles could be cured, and that drives that medicinal use, so-called medicinal use, drives this trade in certain areas. In China and in many the rich circuits in the world, urban circuits where the rich people live, they have they are known to make pangolin wines and then sell off in markets. Those are sold into party circuits of places like Hong Kong, Chicago, Singapore, because said that gives great amount of toxic, what you call that, kicks and toxicity values, intoxication actually, not toxicity, intoxication. And then pangolins are also made, used in Oriental Chinese medicinal system in China, and also in other Oriental medicinal system in East Asia. And where they say that pangolin scales are used for making medicines that treat rheumatism, they improves lactation in women, and then can cure piles, and then nowadays aphrodisiac. A pangolin meat also is eaten. It is big demand. Also earlier was pangolin traded for only scales. Now even live pangolins are quite much in trade, and if someone does internet survey, then you can also come across somewhere pangolins being sold in various names of medicines. In India also big network of the trade operators all over the country. Many of the features, you can make out that here is a big kind of a stock of wildlife materials. We can see tiger bones very clearly because of size. We can see a trap which is by size is a tiger trap, but we see a leopard skin, and in the distant views, if we look at the other parts of the corner, there you see leopard skin. So it get mix of, and then some tiger bones, some leopard bones. So leopard was never in demand in the Oriental, Chinese, what's called PCA. But since tiger was there, tiger was mentioned well. Good mentioning of tigers there. But then, since not so many tigers are available in the market, available for marketing, and also that there's a huge focus on tiger conservation and protection. So therefore, people, and the leopard is a H species, easier to kill and extract its derivatives. So lot of time criminals take out those derivatives and mix it with tiger products. Of course, the skin can be immediately identified, but then bones very difficult to identify unless you've got very good forensic experience and forensic training in it. Some sizes can just distinguish between the size here, like very typical femur bone of tiger, which is very typical in size. And of course, claws not so easy to distinguish because it's adult leopard and sub-adult tiger can also be the same size. Cap can be identified with, but the idea of saying you here is that a lot of species are mixed with each other nowadays to maximize the profit. And in the name of one species, the other species mixed up, look alike species, in order to see that market for the market. So many of the species are in trade. I'll run through that because time is limited for us, 1 hour. This the bile, the gallbladder, the bile which comes from gallbladder of the bears. And while we went traffic, we were thinking, there was a thought always in the country that Himalayan brown bear and black bears are safe because they are much of the height, and where the Indian sloth bear and Indian black bear and sloth bear where the bites are taken out. But in our time, I think 2017 and 16, almost 25 cases of killing of sloth bear of the Himalayan black and brown bear we found in upper altitude of the Himalayas, and they are alerted and given to WIA for its forensic examination DNA, and also Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, etc. We shared the intel with those people, and a lot of people were arrested, a lot of cases were seized. And again here also the price is the driver because it is sold in terms of tola. It is not sold in terms of gram or pieces. It is 4 times the price of gold. So it is 4 tola, 2 tola, 3 tola, 4 tola, as these prices. With that prices, this kind of prices, this gallbladder from bears, different species of bears are sold in the market. And again, China is one of the big market for it. And they say that, different studies say that bear bile probably are one of the top ranking in terms of price, the richest, probably the most expensive wild commodity in the world in illegal market. Shartush, all of us know, Shartush is called a ring shawl, and literally it goes to the ring. It is so warm, high altitude species, not found in India, but then all the shawls are made in India because the craftsmen live in Kashmir. And we have seen the price, the shawl is still sold in the market. I've seen that. I've done recently in 2017-18 also. I did some surveys, and I found in areas like Ladakh and Nepal, also Nepal market, Nepal market, you can see the shops, and after some intel level work, they can even take out and offer to you for sale. And sometimes they will be pure Shartush, sometimes they mix with Pashmina. Sometimes it depends on the price, will be an indicator. Like I've seen shawls up to 50 lakhs rupees one shawl, and I've seen the lowest price also of about 4 or 5 lakhs. So the 4 and 5 will have less of the Shartush, Chiru's wool, and more of the Pashmina and other mountain coats. It's again difficult to find, but then hair analysis can do it, and then enforcement can be done on it. Other various other species are the central bottom musical instrument called gomat, which is used in Goa culture, or also in Kerala some places with any good cultural festivals or marriage, etc. This is used as a traditional musical instrument where you use monitor lizard abdomen skin because that has got a lot of good vibration power, and then that is all used for making this instrument. Then the person who is playing this Veena type of musical instrument is called shamisen, and that is shamisen, and that is found in Japan, and which uses this compulsorily the red wood with good vibration power, that is red sandals, which we found in 4 or 5 districts in Andhra Pradesh. On the left hand side, see that this uh, uh, the genital part of monitored lizard is used for making some of those black magic uh, things, and which is usually used in some traditional practice in culture there in places in Western Uttar Pradesh, Upper Western Uttar Pradesh, now in also central India in Madhya Pradesh, and now it's coming to even South India. Therefore, uh, getting better health, better wealth, monitor lizard abdomen. It's rather genital part made of, produced these products. If we use in house, then probably that will get lots of prosperity. Below that is also a kind of a biryani, which is not normal. If someone travels from Chennai to Bangalore or Chennai to Hyderabad, then on the roadside there are many hotels which sell biryani, especially made of monitor lizard meat. That's very expensive, but then that is used. So you're seeing that monitor lizard, almost every part is getting used here, and that is what drives the trend. Our freshwater turtle.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were saying something, sir.
No, I'm not saying anything. I'm giving anybody saying anything?
No, sir. Completely fine, sir. Please, sir, carry on, sir.
And please also let anybody if anyone wants to ask question interview, please do that really, because
Sure, sir.
because
Sure.
this is one problem of the virtual mode, because we are not able to really interact. So please feel very free to ask any question.
Sure.
So Indian tent turtle, and you can see all the Yamuna and Gangetic banks in UP, in Bihar and Eastern UP. You can see them, and those are one of the really quite much demanded species as a pet species, internationally sold. Sometimes they're brought all the way from there to South India because they're the hubs of marketing trading here, and from there here to taken to Sri Lanka, and also taken to Southeast Asia, Malaysia, and Singapore and Hong Kong, and then sold there. It's really when the products, wildlife materials, live animal or these products or derivatives, when they change borders, change hands, the prices really goes up by several levels, sometimes even 10 times or even 20 times, depending upon the kinds of market in which the product is going. It's not that everything goes to China or everything goes to Southeast Asia. Depending upon the products, they also go to Europe. I remember that in Bombay when I was there, and I had conducted one raid when I was Wildlife Crime Control. I was regional deputy director in 2002, and I had conducted one last seizure based on intel. And it was 28-hour long operation, which ended in from airport it started, but then we ultimately had to go to Lalbagh area of Bombay, which has produced many of those earlier time of well-known smugglers and underworld teams. And when we had raided two premises there, we found almost 26 cages full of birds, almost counted to 13,000 birds, many of them dead because of in trade transportation, nobody follows any protocol. So a lot of mortality also there in the live animals. So like that, these birds go to, and those birds are meant for going to Pakistan and then to Middle East, and then from there, some of the birds like finches and also jungle manna, they were all to go to hill manna particularly. They were all to go to markets in Europe with big demands. Finches and munias, some of the munias also, they were all be meant for European markets. So huge price tags are there, and they were all being taken by Americans with customs as well as with airlines, with Pakistan International Airlines. Many of those coastal products, like coastal species, still much more difficult to identify, very difficult to identify, and species identification is still much more difficult. And they're in huge demands all over the world. Like the first left slide, which shows soup made of sea cucumber for the Surian species, and that I saw in China while I was in China. I saw in China it being sold for $250 a plate, which is pretty expensive, and that's supposed to be a great delicacy there. On the right hand side, you see, and someone you can also identify is ambergris, which has recently become a valuable product, and they say that it is sold for almost as the price of the gold, and that is also we are not very clear about whether this is really wildlife or something else, because they say that comes out of the vomit of blue whale or other sperm whale, and it's collected from the sea by the fishermen, or nowadays targeted fishing is there, and then sold to middlemen and those channels, and go to different parts of the world for making perfumery, in perfumery industry, as well as also in medicinal plant industry. Then shark fins has been always in trade because of it is converted to suhu, and that is it's a real great delicacy in Southeast Asian market, and even in India also is good. The market is growing. People are even in a position to pay money for that as we get richer. Now, when we talk about the wildlife trade, we do definitely talk about the plant species. Even in Schedule 6 of the Wildlife Protection Act also covers it. Only 6 are, of course, protected under the Wildlife Protection Act. But and 28, 29 are there, which is prohibited for trade in if they belong to the wild under the Export-Import Control Order, under the exim policy of India. And then many of them are also protected under the CITES, the International Trade Convention, one of the largest trade convention in the world. Now, nevertheless, this some of those plants like the pitcher plant or blue wanda, red wanda, and fruit, of course, used nowadays quite much cultivated as well, but the wider country get mixed. Then Cycas medomi found in Andhra Pradesh. I remember that when I was in the US by doing my PhD, that time a message had come that American customs had caught someone selling a Mexican, this orchid that cost $10,000 for one pot, one plant, which was absolutely unimaginable. So that kind of price tax goes there. So plant is a vast trade and so difficult to identify, and all the more when they are converting into formulations and then sell for trading. So flowers, formulations, orchids, these seeds, rhododendron flowers. It's very, very popular in for use for medicinal industry in Germany, in Netherlands, etc., and then taken all the way from Sikkim and Arunachal Pradesh to that country. Red sanders, many of you must have come to know about that. Red sanders, probably in recent time, has been one of the biggest challenge in enforcement. Demand is huge, price is huge. If the best quality, the grade one, can even go up to 45 to 50 lakhs rupees per metric ton of the red sanders, meaning that almost 45,000, 50,000 rupees per kilogram, which is pretty expensive. And though it's found only in 4 districts of Andhra Pradesh, and I was doing a project for traffic there. They are found. They grow only in shelled soil on the hill slopes. Doesn't require much water, and but then this, and also there are plantations all over. I think Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, but then it is a slow-growing species. Takes about almost 50, 60 years, or even more, for the complete maturity, for to become harvestable. But then, and then this is a mystery because such a huge price. In fact, sometime back, about 25, 30 Chinese were caught, young boys and girls, and each one of them were carrying at the Cochin airport and Chennai airport two incidents, in which each one of them was carrying about 25 kilograms of the handbag in luggage, and that was the permissible luggage weight. And when it was investigated, when they were apprehended by some intel and then apprehended, each one of them is having 25 kilograms of that red sanders in chips and small logs, and they were going by air to Hong Kong and from there to China. So it is very unbelievable at some time that some And they said that the red wood, red sandal has got a red wood inside, which the Chinese like a lot. In second AD dynasty, the king's dynasty, it was only the king who would use this red sandals. But later now every Chinese became a king financially. So now people use far and wide. But when we were investigating it, and in China also, we found that the furniture made of red sandals would cost anything of 2, 3, 4, 5 crores rupees, which was really huge, big. So prices, the demand, and then the red sandal wood is also used for a lot of medicinal preparation. Again, here also, I think improving lactation in women, which say that in Chinese traditional medicine is recommended. Then also for coloring beer, it's used in Asian market, in Japan. And the red sandals even go to Middle East for making these kind of preparations, and also for making, for coloring beer, and for making some furniture, especially among the Chinese expatriates where they live. So the final result is that mafias work, people are killed, even enforcement officers have been found to be killed, and then there are different methods of smuggling. If you look at this bottom slide on the right hand side, in Chhattisgarh, once something was booked there for transportation to go to Nagpur freight stations, and they customs checked and then sealed the cover, and then the consignment went by lorry, and Nagpur somebody had given some intel, and when the lorry was opened, it was full of red sandals. Something else was booked and sealed, but something else was there. So very obviously that on the way they had changed the door itself with the lock on. So that kind of modus operandi is also used for red sandals. Well, let me briefly, talk about Wildlife Protection Act, which maybe a little bit I'll highlight, which may be of interest to you. That it's a very stringent act which governs wildlife protection. I mean, protection of wildlife and stopping illegal trade, apart from management issues and even declaration of sanctuary national park. But Section 9 and 11 are very important because they say that nobody can hunt it, and hunting is well defined here. By even trapping, even hand holding also can become hunting. Poisoning can become hunting. Trapping can become hunting. Even teaching becomes hunting. So that becomes liable for prosecution under the Act. Section 17, entire Section 17A to up to X deal with the specified plants and say that certain plants which have been scheduled in Schedule 6 are prohibited, protected, and only with the permit only the trade can be done. In Section 33, Section 35 deal with the wildlife warden's power about the sanctuary national park. Section 38 talks about central zoo authority and that recognition, as well as other sections in that chapter talk about how the zoos are regulated. So even if you go inside the zoo and teach an animal, it can become an offense under the Wildlife Protection Act, and one can be booked, and then under that the zoo act has power to prosecute. Then other important sections are 39(1), where it's very important that the property, that every wildlife and article which is seized becomes a government property. Every wildlife it dies. See, wildlife as such is not a government property; it's a public property. But the moment an wild animal dies, which is scheduled in the Protection Act, it becomes a government property. And therefore, if anybody finds that, then you will be called that you're possessing government property, and then you can prosecute. Then Section 49, there are sections after that, Declaration Chapter 1, Section 40, 41, 42, etc. There are some sections which also permit captive elephants in private hands, and there are loopholes also in the Act which allows people to really transact into captive elephants and change hands. Section 50, 51 are important from angle of prosecution, seizure, and the procedures of that, penalties. It's defined penalty Section 51, and say that for repeated offenders, and it's very high penalty of 7 years rigorous imprisonment, and up to 10,000 rupees, not less than 20,000 rupees. And then if somebody tries to alter the boundary of a Tiger Reserve National Park or a sanctuary, the legal fine can go up to 50 lakh rupees and imprisonment along with or without imprisonment of 7 years rigorous, which is a pretty high and strong. But then unfortunately, very few people get that. Generally, people get away with either no conviction no penalty, or with little penalty, or 1 year, 2 years, or 3 year maximum penalty. Section 55 talks about the cognizance that which kind of court, like anything, any act, any violation of this act, which is cognizable and non-bailable when the minimum punishment has been defined, then only the first class magistrate can only try that case, those cases. CJ, Chief Judicial Magistrate, not below that. Then it has got 6 schedules, 1 to 6, where 1 is the maximum protected species are located most, and those are very endangered, but those require a serious review, scientific review, and reworking. Part 2 of Section 2 also, Schedule 2 also has got the same status as the Schedule 1. And then you have 3 and 4, in which you have got a species like deers and as well as hog, and number of birds are there, reptiles are there, tortoises are there, and some of the molluscans and the species also there. Section 5, which says that the state can declare species vermin like crow or any other species which has become menace to the society in terms of damage to agriculture or something. That can be called vermin and can be killed, can be culled. And Section 6 is for the price. Schedule 6 is for the price. As I was saying in the beginning, I showed you a crime scene. Crime scene investigation
Sir, may I interrupt, sir? Because there's a question, sir, regarding the existing legislation. Sir, in your opinion, need of the hour to curb illegal wildlife trade is to strict implementation of the existing laws, or it should be, forming more laws? What would be more appropriate in your opinion?
I would go for strict implementation and more resources for implementation. When I say resources, I would mean that you have a sufficient number of people who could really do the crime scene management properly, take the evidence properly, prepare the case papers. Then other set of people who can go for prosecution, other set of people who can go for investigation, and have also the resource like access to CDR, modern equipments, IQ type of the softwares, good computing system, good vehicles, good ammunition arms, and you have enough money for collection of intent. So those resources become blocked. Even you don't have enough resources to train the people properly in acts and also in prosecutional method, in enforcement methodologies. So I think implementation is the main bottleneck rather than even the present act also can be effectively implemented. Can be very effective if implemented properly.
Sure, sir.
And those removing those kind of bottlenecks and obstacles. So maybe there are in acts got here and there some lacunas there, no doubt about it. Those can still be corrected, but I don't think it really requires a very major change. But what requires change actually is the level of implementation, that is enforcement, real-time enforcement, and real-time investigation.
Sir, there is one more question related to this question. Sir, there is one more question by Dr. Ashok Gehlot. He is asking, would it be possible to stop illegal wildlife trade in India completely?
This is a little bit predictable type of question. Completely nothing can be stopped. You tell me, can a human crime be stopped completely? No. My answer would be no, because anything to stop or get or eliminate completely virtually remains impossible because of human beings, society, economic forces, social forces, different types of other forces are always at interplay. Economy is growing, demands are increasing. There are, of course, enforcement also increasing, but demands also increasing. So completely stopping something in a society, even in the most developed society, also is not possible.
Exactly.
But we can minimize, we can reduce the scale.
Sure, sir.
We can reduce the scale so much that it is not to lead to extinction of the species. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Of course, sir. Of course, sir. Please, sir. We will have more questions, sir, at the last of your presentation.
Yeah, please. Any other question?
No, sir. No, sir. We will have more questions, sir, at the last of the presentation, because otherwise, sir, it will, spoil the, sir, flow of the talk.
Okay, sure. So
Yeah.
crime scene, I was saying, I believe few minutes also left. So crime scene is not investigated properly. There are methodologies for doing the crime scene, like I showed that grid methods, different types of grid, and then all these evidences one should look for. You can see the right side. I don't know how clear to you it's the slide, but then on the right hand side, digital evidence, computers nowadays, cell phones, banking passports, your passport, banking papers, account number, banking transactions, guns, ammunition, anything can be important evidence which is not usually looked for, and that's why crime scene management and search and seizure is not effective. So their methods are, may not be knowing, may not be much interested in it because mostly it's the job of the enforcers, but then probably some of them you may have also a lot of research, when you think about doing research and how a crime scene management with regard to wildlife investigation can be improved and can be effectively done and documented. Let me very quickly say about a little bit that saying in the beginning that there are modern technologies and tools now, like forensics, which can be used both morphometry as well as DNA barcoding, which can be used effectively for connecting the different dots, connecting different links, and can then you can completely profile a crime, the criminals, and that can be helpful for prosecution. And we use nowadays DNA is technology is used being used, but again not many centers are available here in this country. Like WIA has been doing for a long time, but they're overburdened. It get very, it's a lot of time it takes when you get the results back, and then your prosecution becomes weaker. In traffic when we had the circuit of the whole country, the kits for collection of the samples, and with using some modern tools, and those samples should be sent to the, using proper methods and methodologies, which also we now send along with the kits. We also later I did in AIWC and get into the to the field level officials to collect. But problem again is that implementation of those. People really don't use them or don't use it properly because I think somewhere some side lack of seriousness or lack of probably sensitivity that all that sample, even a hair is found there, can be really important evidence. Or some stick left behind, or somebody is roughed after killing somebody, roughed a hand on a tree and then some blood stains there could be very important. Somebody would have left something, a cigarette or very or key rings could be very important for collection. When animals become dead, found dead there, its blood or tissue or any other sample, body sample can be used for establishing the species and also the chain of crime, chain of custody. Or that we do through lab methods. Morphometry when used, especially when we have samples like hair, which have shown the shawl, wool, and hair, or when we see that when any skin is found, then we can put the hair, and then we can use medullary and cuticular, indexing. That taking its measurement, the ratio can give very distinctive, features connecting to a species, and that can become a part of your, prosecution papers. Even claws can be found out. Claws can be profiled in using morphometric techniques. Species like tusk and ivory can be profiled using hairs, feathers of birds, which are plentifully available in markets for different regions, like peafowl, or even different kinds of other many other birds, which feathers are quite much used in market in making the bushes, making even candles, this what do you call jhandas, those kind of things, pankhas, fans, some articles, some ornamental articles, decoration items. Those all can be taken out, and then you can study the species, and then probably you can go further into the case progress in the trial. Especially like horn, we can even prove through using morphometry, whether it's a real horn or it's a real horn of rhino, or it's a horn of a buffalo or something else, or even nowadays even plastics polymers are also used for taking it. And as you may be knowing that a real rhino horn, which is not more than 500 grams to 175 kilogram or a kilogram at the most in Indian context, 100 sellers can go even 3 to 4 to 5 crore rupees a kilogram. So it's very important also to establish the real of it. And that can be done by looking at the pattern. The first one is the real rhino, which you can identify through, say 1 by 4x or 10x kind of microscope. And the other two are actually fake rhino. The first two are the original. And then the third one, the last one is the fake, which is coming out of some buffalo or some other horn. Here I said that already. Like in case of a Tibetan antelope, that is chiru, that is a wavy structure which can be easily found through some practice using magnifiers or good microscope. And then other pashmina doesn't have that wavy kind of those structures. Structural. So the structural, what is a morphometry study is also very important for prosecution. The ratio of modular and particular can become, I said that about that. That can all be very helpful for looking at cross section, and that can be distinctive for a species that we are trying to index that and try to have a. I think WI also have done some good atlas in it. We are also trying to make some atlas on species which not been studied by WIA, so that more and more number of species can be standardized. By looking at the cross-sectional structure and then standardization in terms of length and width, that is structural dimensions. So claws like tiger and fake and wild can be easily found. Like on the right hand side, fake, somebody's fake discs to put the bone inside the skin, which is also fake. Where actually the real ones on the left, you will find that actually the bone part covers the claw part, which is very sharp and distinct. So somebody might not be knowing the criminal, so just take it and try to set it out. Name of tiger or leopard. Otherwise, you can also use instrument like stereoscopic X-ray machines, where opacity will be with other than tiger and leopard, and the other claws will be very opaque. Transparency level will be maybe 5 to 10%. In case of tiger and leopard, will be more than 60 to 70% transparency. Molecular, we know DNA. All of you, I mean, majority of you might be knowing that DNA barcoding we do. We take the sample, extract the DNA, and then have the different stages in it. Then we do the PCR and they amplify, and then we clean it up. The sample will be enough good ratio of, then in that case we have, then we sequence it, and after sequencing we have probably, I just call it back, I mean, somewhere. So, and this is after sequencing, you find is species sequence, you can establish the species, and you can even find the population. Sometimes
Sir, your volume is gone, sir. We can't hear you, sir. Hello? Hello? Sir, we can't hear you, sir. I think he can't hear us as well. I think his
are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now you are back, sir. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry about that.
No,
I think
no problem.
How many minutes before you lost the contact?
Sir, around, sir, I think 2 minutes. 2 minutes back, sir. We were trying to reach you, sir.
The forensics DNA, did you hear? Morphometry?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. Exactly, sir. Precisely.
Okay. Did you see this slide and heard me about it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. This slide.
Yes, sir. When you're talking about the fake one, and after that you came to the no, sir. This was done, sir. This was done. Yeah. After that.
This was done establishing
Yeah.
AWC labs. Okay,
Yeah.
So I was here
Fine,
only.
sir. Yeah.
I said that any labs can be done with the investment of about 40 to 50 lakhs rupees. You can have a very good molecular lab with even some portion of morphometry, because I find that morphometry and DNA, that is molecular and morphometry structural, both combined together can give very good results. And 40 to 50 lakh rupees minimum. I'm saying that's minimum, not get a very classic kind of. But then 40 to 50 lakh rupees investment you can have in your college a good laboratory on forensics, wildlife forensics. And then of course, upper limit, there's no limit. You can go for very sophisticated like CCMB in Hyderabad and all our class apart organizations. And in AWC also we have put about say 20-35 crore rupees. If we go to Gujarat forensics, they would have put about 500 crore rupees. But then this is worth investing. When we set up this morphometry and both forensics, that is DNA barcoding as well as the morphometry, it has also got very wide applications, which also have great amount of research implications, like demographic, species-wise inbreeding to investigate, hybridization, genetic depression, new species finding can be found out. Now, our approach now more efforts are there to even simplify the procedures, have handheld kind of like handheld DNA card readers kind of thing, instrument DNA barcoder, which can be even used by the field people. That is, our research is toward that, and when we have initiated some of the research using even the sequencing from a sample, any sample which can give DNA. And even using, say, getting rid of the PCR and doing PCR-free sequencing is also possible. And that we are trying to research that and trying to establish protocol in it. Nowadays, forensics should be actually really be looking at financial crime. Every crime has a financial angle, as you know that. Some financial angle will be there. Sometimes it can be very huge, big profit motive, and that financial footprint will be left. Anybody will leave it. Like when we do today, nowadays we are digital, so every day lot of footprints we leave, financial footprint. We use our cards, we use our financial digital transactions. All that can be that all get recorded, and all that can be examined and can be further investigated as evidence for crime, establishment of crime, and can connecting the dots and linking all the links of the crime. So forensic, the financial forensic itself is a huge, big sector and faculty in which there has to be quite good training to get into it and could do it. The laboratories, the kind of instruments which you need, the kind of profiler you need. But it is really, really very effective and modernistic and futuristic. Okay, I think I'm last two slides only. I'm slightly short of the time. No, I'll just say that why it is happening, what is happening. So if you look at the global economic profiling, the picture, you'll see that the economic growth is happening everywhere. In the country like India or China or Malaysia, it's happening even much more at a greater speed, because we are developing country, we need to develop fast. So almost all kinds of infrastructure or road networks or airport, number of airports or ports, or in general the level of living, economic per capita income, everything is so growing that society has got more and more money, and therefore more affordability, and therefore more per capita income, and sometimes maybe more surplus income as well. So what happens that if you look at very carefully this system loop, feedback loop diagram, which is a statistical exposition, but I'm not showing the statistic behind it. But if you see like that, everything is connected to GDP. The GDP is the gross domestic product, which is one indicator of economic growth, not a very good indicator, but still. So both internal, your GDP, that is how the country is growing, and the external, that how the country is financially behaving with other countries and transacting. So both of them make an impact on demand of a, say, product. It's called, I'll say tiger X. So when the demand increase, obviously the price will increase. So they are positively related. It's called positive relationship. So when the price increases, the profit increases. So both are again positively related entities. Then when the expected profit increases, then there will be more and more poaching efforts. They are again positively related. So this drives the other. Then when the more poaching efforts, then there will be more poaching. So poaching will drive the poaching effort. So positively related again. When the more poaching is there, the density in habitat will come down. So that is negatively negative. It means that if there is more poaching, there will be less density of the animals in the long run, and then you lose species. So negatively. Then density and then you have abundance. So less density, then abundance become. I mean, more abundant. When it's negatively related because density increases, abundance is less, and when the abundance is more than your density, it becomes more spread out. So negatively correlated. And then abundance is connected with again the demand. That if you have more and more demand, then you have more abundance. Sorry, less abundance, negatively connected. And if you have less abundance, then more demand. That's the economic correlation also. So the idea of saying and describing this is that the same wildlife trade also is basically the reflection of the demand supply market mechanism and market dynamics. So by saying that, I will say that why I'm saying that it means that as the country keeps on growing, which we said that they are all going, they are on the trajectory of growth. They are bound to, they will keep on growing, whatever factors come in between the respective of that. And therefore, the demand will always increase because you have more money in the market. When the demand increases, obviously there will be more demand on wildlife. So you are bound to lose wildlife unless you have very matching, support in terms of all this. What you said that whether you are enforcement, implementation of law, or techniques and tools, or that kind of a social and economic processes, including setting up this kind of institutions and labs and more money for prosecution, enforcement, investigation. Unless that matches with that, we'll always lose. It is bound to happen. Therefore, unless we do all that, it is not possible to really stop illegal wildlife trade, reduce poaching. It's a big challenge, and that is to be understood. That is in terms of economics and in terms of the growth pattern. So with that, I said that our institute, which we set up, was one effort we thought within South India, where we'll do what WI is doing in North, so that we can coordinate and we can increase. So there was investment in the beginning by the government, something, but then in between COVID came, and then it couldn't be sustained. So probably such institutes, when we open it, also we should also think about how to sustain that and sustain effectively in order to match with the challenges and demands from the sector. Now, wildlife, this wildlife trade, illegal wildlife trade investigations are also part of the wildlife conservation research. Many of the institutions which provide platforms, CCMB, majority of you may be knowing, is a really good institute. And then WIA has been there for a long time on this platform. Many other non-government organizations, NGOs, and then also the research institutions like NCBS. They are also, all of them are providing platforms for students and for the teachers to collaborate, even obtain degree, and even do the post-degree research investigations, and which all sectors, enforcement or other sectors need, either this way or the that way, need all that information, the research output. So I think that is what the need of our, that more and more of all that research we do, and then probably more and more collaborations and more sharing of experience and information and information systems we do. We develop system and we share the systems with each other. So in order to have a better and bigger and more effective hands to control that. I think this is all what I wanted to speak today. You may be identifying the species. This is Aishwarya's pet species, and probably his picture also is this. I'm not sure about it. He will clarify and confirm it. So I think with that I'll end here. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And I was delighted to see the end slide, of course, the snow leopard. And sir, but really, sir, we all are very much thankful to you and grateful to you having, having a sore throat. You actually made it and clarified a lot of misconceptions as well as confusions in our minds about the illegal wildlife trade. Now it's the time for taking a few questions because we are already running a sort of time. So dear participants, we have a few questions in the chat box, but if anyone wants to ask a question directly to Dr. Shekhar Kumar Neeraj Sahab, please go ahead. So meanwhile, there is a question. How much would it be the net worth of wildlife illegal trade market in India and globally? So do we have a figure?
For globally, we have, Interpol, UNODC, and all conduct figure. It's a very complicated thing, but then I think they put about 25 to 30 billion US dollars worth. But in India, I don't think it's been really done because the prices vary a lot. There are prices, there are meat consumption, there are pet rates, pet birds. And so I don't think someone has really done an assessment here. It is an area open for assessment. But it will not be easy because it requires huge amount.
Yeah. So is it true that, we usually hear that wildlife illegal trade is the third biggest global illegal trade after ammunition and human trafficking? Is it true?
I mean, it keeps changing, but then definitely among the top 3-4, it keeps changing year after year when these calculations, because it's so difficult. No, black market price also not so known. The price of one species may be different here, specimen, and can be very different in other country. So there will be a lot of those kind of economic valuations factors as well. But then it say that it's third or fourth. It may be definitely top among top 3-4.
Certainly, sir. Dr. Nasir sir is asking, in my view, sir, the illegal wildlife trade can stop only when value of their products becomes zero. So instead of making strict law on wildlife killing, which don't the government prohibit the sale of their products completely. So he's talking about rather making, illegal wildlife trade. He's asking that the sale and purchase should be strictly prohibited.
I think he's raised a very important point, very significant and very thoughtfully, because I also think that it can never be stopped unless you stop the demand. And so therefore should be campaigns or whatever you do, there may be different methodologies to do that, address it. But better to stop demand as much as possible. I mean, make it as less as possible so that, when there's no demand, things will not be sold. Maybe a little bit local consumption or can happen, but that will not be very detrimental. So the main, always the biggest detriment only comes from the very big markets, and that has to be stopped. So I think it's very rightly said that.
Certainly, sir. And there is a request, sir, please share your presentation. Sir, would it be possible for you to kindly share your presentation with the participants or some course material?
Yeah, maybe some of those, I'll send that, because maybe some of those slides may have some of the ongoing case things. I'll remove all those and then send it to you. You can share with the participants.
Sure, sir. Sure. Certainly, sir. Certainly. So with that, sir, these are the end of the questions. And of course, sir, you have already shared your number and your email ID. So whosoever would like to get in touch directly with you would do so. So with these words, sir, it was really, a great talk. I would say one of the best talks we are having in this 21 days training program on forest management, sustainable use of natural resources. Great, sir. And on behalf of the organizing committee and my own behalf, the Banda University of Agriculture and Technology at the outset, express the sincere gratitude to you for sharing your incredible knowledge and valuable experiences with us and enhancing and enriching our knowledge on the overview of the illegal wildlife trade. You have covered almost all the aspects of the illegal wildlife trade and provided us a comprehensive and a holistic approach on the subject, sir. With these words, sir, thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
I thank you. And then I know, since I've given my email address and my phone numbers are there, I would welcome anybody who wants to interact any point of time or even wants to supplement to my knowledge, and most welcome them. So please do email to me. I'll definitely reply back.
Sure, sir. Sure. And we look forward to work with you, sir. Once again, sir, I personally do look forward, very soon, hopefully.
I'll come to your college.
Most welcome, sir. Most welcome, sir. Sure, sir.
Thank you very much, Aishwarya. Have a good day, all of you. Thank you.
Yeah. You too, sir. You too. Bye, sir.
Bye.
Yeah. So, dear participants, it was really an enlightening session by Dr. Shekhar Kumar Saab. So this was the end of the session of today. Before we take the holy holidays break, there will be a few sessions tomorrow, and after that we can break, because I know you have been desperately waiting, I would say, for a holy break. So tomorrow is 17, and we have scheduled 2 lectures for tomorrow, 3 lectures for tomorrow, because the lecture could not be. Yeah, then today that was by Dr. Ajay. He's a scientist at RFRI, Jorhat, Evaluation of Ecosystem Services, with a special reference to Manas National Park. And we are having 2 very important lectures for tomorrow. One is on the ecological niche modeling in biodiversity conservation. So I'm sure that you might be interested in enhancing your skills in the niche modeling, ecological niche modeling analysis. So this is a very important lecture by Dr. Vivek Vaishnav. He is a professor at the Manipur University. Then we are having another session on mainstreaming grassroots innovations. That is by Dr. Vivek. He is scientist at the NIF Orissa. So these 3 sessions have been scheduled for tomorrow. So have a great day ahead, and thank you very much. See you tomorrow.